Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Monday, October 5th. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. Moderate to heavy showers, intermittent rain and thunderstorms will continue across St. Vincent and the Grenadines due to the presence of low to mid-level moisture and a favorable upper-level atmosphere. Rainfall accumulations of 50 millimeters or approximately 2 inches with isolated higher amounts in mountainous areas are possible during the next 18 hours. As a result, the flash flood warning, which is already in effect for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is now extended until 12 noon tomorrow. Residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides or near rivers and streams should continue to be vigilant and take the necessary precautionary measures to protect life and property. A flash flood warning is issued when flooding is imminent or is already occurring. Several communities across on mainland St. Vincent experienced flash flooding over the weekend, mainly on Friday. And Director of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, Michelle Forbes, told SVG-TV News today that 2 retainer walls collapsed. However, there was no loss of life, nor persons seeking shelter.
We have reports since Friday from some areas that have reported landslides since Friday and into this morning. On Friday, we would have had some heavy rains we had some rivers that were very heavy. We didn't have any rivers that mainly overflowed on Friday, but we had some heavy rivers in the areas of South Rivers, Vermont, even Mespo, but no, we had no damage in those areas from the rains. We, however, had some landslides in Belmont, in Georgia Gutter, and in Belair, and we had a fallen tree in just hitting a roof, not much damage in Richland Park. This morning we had several reports of landslides, especially in and around homes. We had quite a severe one in Diamonds Village. That would have been a retaining wall would have collapsed. We had a retaining wall collapse also in Byra, and a few landslides here and there in Park Hill, South Rivers, and a few areas. So
Forbes said they have commenced an assessment of the impact of the recent rainfall and will be working with the relevant ministries to bring relief to affected residents.
Conduct an assessment in collaboration with the Ministry of Transport and Works and the Physical Planning Department today. So those assessments would have been completed. What we want to remind persons that because the soil is already saturated, once we continue to have the rainfall, we are going to see more slides and possibly more flash flooding in some areas. The flash flooding ends at 6 o'clock today, but if we continue to have rainfall during the week with the already saturated soils, we are going to see more landslides. So we want to ask persons to continue to be vigilant as we are in the wetter part of the hurricane season.
Forbes added that the affected communities are those that are prone to flooding and landslides.
All of the areas I mentioned are prone to flooding, especially in the Mespo area, prone to landslides, and we would have had the rivers in the north windward side, especially Noel and Overland, that would have been overtop, more or less, not to their banks, but the rivers were quite high in Overland and Noel this morning. So those are the areas that tend to be flooded during this time of the year when we have heavy rainflows in that areas, and the areas of landslides are where we normally have the landslides traditionally around the country.
The 2020 hurricane season has been quite busy, with all 21 assigned names already exhausted. This was noted by Gregory Cato of the SVG Met Services on SVG Radio, that should be on NBC Radio's face-to-face program this morning. Cato said thus far, 24 named storms have been formed, 8 of which developed into hurricanes, 2 of these, Laura and Teddy, being major storms.
So to have already reached Gamma, when you have reached that far and it's still just October, and I'd like the folks to know that October on average is the wettest month. So we still have to be mindful and keep an eye out, be vigilant and be alert.
Noting that historically, October and November are the wettest months of the year, Cato said the public should remain on the alert, especially persons living in areas prone to landslides and flooding. And customers of the Central Water and Sewerage Authority, CWSA, are being advised to prepare for unplanned water disruption as the hurricane season intensifies. This has already been the most active hurricane season on record, with several storms and flood warnings issued for SVG. In a news release issued today, the CWSA said over the past few weeks, the country has experienced intermittent heavy rainfall, resulting in several pipelines being broken due to fallen trees and land slippage, which has resulted in emergency work being undertaken in several areas by its staff. Noting that sudden disruptions to the water supply in any area can occur as a result of the adverse weather conditions, the CWSA said it continues to be actively involved in the monitoring of climate, weather, and river flow data through its Water Resources Unit and will endeavor to provide information in a timely manner to customers. The Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Luke Brown, has dismissed claims that he and his ministry have been reactive rather than proactive in dealing with the dengue fever outbreak in the country. Responding to a question at a news conference on Friday to announce a cabinet-approved $1.6 million integrated response plan to the outbreak, Minister Brown said they have been working for some time now. However, they have escalated their response to suit the current situation.
And, the actual developments will guide us in terms of how many additional teams that we might need. We use the experience with previous outbreaks from dengue fever and also with outbreaks from chikungunya to give us a sense of what are some of the preliminary steps that have to be taken. And we took those preliminary steps. Now, as we are living through the experience, we are having a clearer sense that, look, what we might need instead of the usual number of persons, number of fogging teams, is not necessarily 5 or 6, but 20. What we might need in terms of the amount of fogging machines that we have is not necessarily 4 or 5, but 30. And these are decisions that you would make to the extent that you could put yourself on a strong footing, and you put that on yourself on a strong footing by making sure that you are in tune with what is happening around you, by following the technical guidance and other guidance provided by CARFA and other agencies. And the ministry has been doing precisely that. And we are now rolling out our response in tandem with the best guidance that is available.
The health minister also refuted claims that the government cut the budget allocation to the Vector Control Unit, thus preventing it from carrying out some of its work.
We are coming here on top of what has already been provided with a proposal to add $1.6 million to the response, which would have an impact on the Vector Control Department and public health in general. Is a compelling, a convincing, and a complete response to that charge. And this kind of thing is counterproductive, and it might divert our energies from maybe offering real and practical solutions and joining a whole of society approach to responding to this. And I know that we are in the midst of a political season, but I'm not afraid to work with persons who are interested of any political persuasion to bring this outbreak of dengue fever under control in St. Vincent and Grenadines. I think that is what is necessary.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves also dismissed the claim made by opposition MP Daniel Cummings at a recent news conference that the budget for the Vector Control Services was cut, even though the ministry had information that there could be an increase in dengue fever in SVG. Speaking on the matter on WeFM's Issue at Hand program on Sunday, the Prime Minister said that this year $5.2 million was budgeted for environmental management and protection services, under which the Vector Control Unit falls.
That's not true. In 2020, the budget for environmental management and protection services is $5.2 million. In 2019, it was $5.173 million. Now in 2018, it was budgeted for just under $500,000. But the actual expenditure was $5.78 million.
PM Gonsalves pointed out that in 2018, $5.7 million was budgeted for, and he has had to sign a special warrant which saw it being increased.
This is a special warrant for sanitation and insect vector control program. It says, below is a projection of the amount to be paid from September the 30th to December the 31st, 2018. Inclusive of workers who are paid vacation leave sick leave, overtime, double time, and triple time for public holidays in the months of October and December 2018. And the narrative went up. The narrative also said, due to the increase in staff and the additional costs during the carnival season, the allotment for the payment of wages for sanitation and insect vector control program has proven to be insufficient to cover the remainder of the year. And what happened is this. The bulk of this money was not to the insect vector control program, was to sanitation, $650,000. 83 workers, 13 weeks by $50,000 a week.
Meanwhile, PM Gonzalez is urging persons to heed the advice given by doctors, which includes getting a dengue fever test done. He alluded to one of the dengue-related deaths recently, where this advice was not fully complied with.
Patient number 4, case number 4, who died. The number I may not get the number right, but what I remembered in the release, the Chief Medical Officer said in the release, or the Medical Health Services Subcommittee of NEMO said, patients are advised to follow the advice of their medical practitioner, including relating to testing. So I found that very intriguing. I usually read these releases very carefully. I don't know how many people do, and I advise everybody to read them carefully. So immediately I called. I said, why is this included? And they said, well, you know, there are some persons who are not taking the advice of the medical practitioner to take the test. And they will get the medication, and then they go home. And within a couple of days, they get very sick. And then they have to be rushed to the hospital. So that is another area where those of us who are listening, look, be careful.
The Prime Minister said that there is no need for persons not to get tested for dengue fever or follow a doctor's advice. He did not mention anything about the cost of getting tested. As it relates to students in the classroom, PM Gonzalez said it is better to keep the students in school rather than at home.
But if you go to work and you leave a child at home, and the mosquito go on there and bite them, the child is not even thinking about drinking a lot of liquids or taking a paracetamol or going to the clinic, and you may come home and meet your child very sick. Rather than in the case of when you're at the school, you have mature eyes there helping to look after the children. At least, I don't know if Wendy agrees with me in this case or disagrees, but it seems to me that makes a lot of common sense.
The Prime Minister said he has given approval to accelerate the hiring of additional doctors and nurses at institutions that are in need of additional staff.
Persons who had done their internship, who didn't get any appointment,
okay,
and who are looking.
Okay.
So, but what happened is this, naturally, some of them didn't want to just turn up and, in a sense, go on a temporary basis now. They wanted to make sure they have an appointment. So I told the CPO and Edmund Jackson, the Director General, and Simone, I said, let the bureaucracy catch up with them. Once the names go from the CMO to the Chief Personnel Officer, so that she has the knowledge of them, employ them, so that when the Public Service Commission does the formal appointment, you just do the appointment from the date when they came on to work now.
This country has no active cases of COVID-19, and there are 32 results pending. In its most recent update late this afternoon, the Coronavirus Task Force also noted that SVG has not had any COVID-19 related deaths. The task force said that 5,386 persons have been tested for the disease. Of the 64 cases recorded in SVG, all persons have recovered, and there are 32 cases awaiting results. The disease, which has affected millions worldwide, has put added strain on the health resources of countries around the globe and severely affected economies. SVG joined other nations around the world today in observing World Teachers' Day. In a message to mark the occasion, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez said though the COVID-19 pandemic is not yet over, For today's World Teachers celebrations, it is quite fitting to appeal to teachers to be the best, to be at their strongest, that is, and creative best, by standing together to take advantage of the opportunities which have presented themselves for meaningful change in education.
We in the Caribbean Community CARICOM are in solidarity with teachers worldwide under the leadership of Education International and endorse your theme, Teachers Leading in Crisis, Reimagining the Future. Happy World Teachers Day. Long live Education International.
The laws of SVG allows for a greater level of protection of the rights of employees than what is being enforced. So says lawyer Jomo Thomas, who was a panelist on SVG-TV's Viewpoint program yesterday, which looked at the current state of the relationship between employers and employees and whether steps should be taken to review labor relations and to legislate protection of income. Thomas, who has been involved in several court cases pertaining to employees' rights and published several articles dealing with the subject, made reference to the former Bookament Bay Resort workers who are yet to receive their severance and other payments owed to them since the resort went into bankruptcy. Thomas said under the NIS Act, if an employer is not paying workers, the government can step in to pay them and then go after the employer, which is what should have been done in this case.
With the situation with Bukama, what we had was the government threw the workers to the wolves and protected Ames. That's how Ames ended up owing robbing us of more than 5 million, but to the INS 5 million. What should have happened is that the government all along, understanding that Ames was not making the payment, should have gone after Ames, should have paid the workers and gone after Ames. They didn't do that. And then, when they finally decided to go after Ames, they came up, the authorities, the police and authorities, decided to tell Ames, look, you don't even have to come to court. A man steal a coconut in Kingston, and he have to come to court. Ames stole millions of dollars. They told him he didn't have to come to court. And what happened? By the time the matter came back again, Ames was gone. So the law itself allows for a certain level of protection. It is the state that is not doing what it's supposed to do.
Trade unionist Noel Jackson said it's unfair for a government to have to take up the tab for an unscrupulous employer, noting that the employer is the one who has an obligation to pay its workers.
Because sometimes it's a large amount of money based on your other obligations that you have. Now the employer basically has the obligation, but they may not have the money. What do you do? And you're saying now what we should do, and I think Jomo made the case in relation to the NIS legislation, is that the NIS would pay and then get the money from the employer. If the NIS pay and the employer don't have the money, what happens?
Look,
you take the employer to court.
What it means, Jackson, is that these institutions have to do their due diligence. You have a big, every now and again, right? Somebody from the INS called me with one employer to ask, wait, Thomas, I didn't see you sending your monies for the one employer.
Me too.
And Jesus Christ, they tell me they have businesses with 100, 200 people, and they end up owing $5 million.
Yeah.
So that's the point I'm making. If these institutions do their due diligence and their work, then they would be able to nip in the bud these crooks that come and take advantage of our workers.
President of the Public Service Union, Elroy Boucher, was in support of Thomas's view that the state has a responsibility to protect the wages of workers, and this is what should happen in the case of the former workers of the Bookament Bay Resort.
They were mandated to put the necessary legislation in place to protect the workers. Now, in the absence of that, it's a total failure by the government. And therefore, they should bear the responsibility for the workers' wages. I've said that so from the beginning. They should bear that responsibility because they fail to protect the workers when they were mandated to do that, because the convention is legally binding on the government one, and they should have put the necessary legislation in place to give effect to the convention.
Impact that would have on that would have on the government, because if something is illegally binding and you're not doing it, what impact that would have on the government?
I don't know what impact it would have. I know that they have consistently been asking the government with respect to the necessary legislation to give effect to the convention.
Evidently it's not having an impact. And part of the reason why it's not having an impact is because there is no level of trade union consciousness in St. Vincent. Or, well, let me not say no level. There's a very low level of trade union consciousness. So you don't even have that. So you can't get to the level of class consciousness.
3 students enrolled at the UWI Open campus here were awarded bursaries by the Mustique Charitable Trust. The 3 students include an accountant and a teacher. Dulari Malcolm of the Charitable Trust said they will be paying 60% of the students' fees and have provided each of them with a laptop. She said the 3 students were carefully selected and it was not all about academics.
Kanika Thompson. She's a teacher at the Petitbadal Secondary School, and she was a catalyst along with her co-workers to start the Girls Guide Association at the Petitbadal Secondary School, which resulted in one student traveling all the way to Australia. We have Karina, if I pronounce that correctly, who during her interview was a very compassionate young woman who expressed her concern for the children and youths of St. Vincent and Grenadines and the abuse that some of them face. And her selection in her studies is focused on that. So she's going to pursue a degree in psychology. Akil Matthews, who impressed us as an innovative entrepreneur. This young man comes up with brilliant ideas, and his selection of marketing, I think, will take him very far.
The charitable organization has been providing bursaries for UWI students for the past 10 years, and to date, Malcolm said 18 students, who they are pleased to have supported, have successfully completed programs.
16 students, which include the 3 who are now joining us, who will be currently pursuing studies. And we actually have 17 graduates, including, which would also take it to 18, if we include Shamika Cambridge, who has successfully completed her program and will be graduating in February of 2021, correct? From the records provided, she's going to attain a first class. So of the students who have graduated, just to give you a little statistics, we have 7 first class, 3 upper second, 6 lower second, and 1 certificate. And including Shamika will be another first class.
Head of the UWI Open campus in SVG, Deborah Dalrymple, said that the partnering with the Mustique Charitable Trust has, in its own way, contributed to national development in SVG.
Not only for your own personal development, but as part of the criteria for your selection, you have to demonstrate that you're patriotic and you're community-minded. So, in addition to your own personal development, this partnership is producing candidates for the development of the country. And for that, we're very grateful. As you all know, the Open Campus is here to serve the underserved. The university says people who perhaps for whatever reason would not make it to a landed campus. But we say that you can do it all here, and with the assistance of the Mustique Charitable Trust, which has been an excellent corporate citizen, we're very happy to welcome you here.
As St. Vincent and the Grenadines prepares to celebrate its 41st anniversary of independence, the nation is being called to prayer through the National Day of Prayer Committee. The National Day of Prayer will be observed on Monday, October 12th, under the theme, Fear Not, I Am With You. The event is being organized by the National Day of Prayer Committee in conjunction with the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs. A news release from the Agency for Public Information says the event aims to unite the nation in prayer, and a number of activities are scheduled for the day. These include workplace and school devotions, interactive and on-air prayers via radio, and on social media, post a prayer. The day's activities will culminate with a virtual prayer rally, which will be streamed via Facebook and carried on VC3 from 5:30.